The stars over the small colony of New Aspen shone peacefully that night. Children slept under dome roofs, engineers ran soft power checks, and the air was filled with calm. But no one saw the Vorvex fleet entering orbit. They came without warning, cloaked and silent, like shadows in the void. The people on the colony had no weapons. They were farmers, builders, scientists. There were no soldiers here. Just families trying to make a life on a quiet world. The first explosions came just before sunrise. A transport station lit up in flames. Then the power grid failed. Within minutes, the sky was full of dark metal, Vorvex ships dropping soldiers like black raindrops. Screams echoed in the night as the colony's defenses collapsed. There weren't many to begin with, just old drones and a security gate. Nothing that could stop an army bred for war. In the chaos inside a small control center, a young boy named Eli pressed a red button on the wall. His hands were shaking. His sister cried beside him, her arms around their dog. The button glowed for a second. Then a small signal pulsed out. Through the broken satellites past the jammers across deep space. No one in the room knew if it would even work. Eli whispered a prayer. Then the roof came down. 3 days later, far across the stars, Earth received the signal. Inside a black facility buried under the Himalayas, a soft ping lit up a forgotten screen. A woman in her 50s, hair tied back and eyes sharp as glass, stared at the signal. She hadn't moved in years. She was retired. Her name was Commander Sarah Cade, and the code in front of her was one she had written herself 30 years ago, after the last galactic war. A code that meant only one thing: unprovoked attack, civilian loss, colony down, no response. She stood up without a word. The news didn't go public. Earth didn't cry, didn't panic. It had learned its lesson long ago. Humans were emotional. Yes, but they remembered. And when they remembered, they didn't forgive. Across the military network, a ghost protocol activated. Names that hadn't been spoken in years reappeared on mission logs. Satellites shifted in orbit. Old warships powered up in hidden hangars. Earth didn't hold press conferences. It didn't ask the Galactic Council for justice. It didn't negotiate. Instead, one ship was prepared. The Emberlight was not a large vessel. It didn't carry thousands of troops. It didn't need to. What it carried was silence, precision, and wrath. It was made for one purpose: to remind the universe that humans were not prey. Before the ship left, Commander Cade entered the hangar and placed her hand on its side. A technician handed her a tablet. The name of the colony blinked at the top: New Aspen. She stared at it for a moment, then gave one order: no prisoners. 72 hours later, deep in Vorvex space, an alert blinked red on a defense station. A single human ship had crossed the border. The commander of the station, a thick-skinned alien with silver tusks, laughed. "One ship," he said. "Let it come." 17 minutes later, the station was silent. No distress call. No last message. Just quiet. When the Vorvex Empire sent scouts to check, they found nothing but burnt metal and a carved human phrase on a piece of wreckage: "We heard you." Panic spread faster than plasma. The Vorvex leaders gathered in their war chambers. They had fought humans before, but those wars were old. They thought Earth had gone soft, busy with trade and peace. But they had forgotten the truth about humans. They never strike first, but when they strike back, they don't stop. Across the Empire, commanders reviewed their invasion reports. One colony, unarmed, peaceful. Why would Earth respond so violently? For one lost outpost? But they didn't understand. For humans, it was never about how big the colony was. It was about who was there. It was about a boy who pressed a red button with shaking hands. A mother who tried to hide her children. A community that trusted peace. And now, that peace was dead. Back on Earth, Commander Cade stood before a new screen. Names of the dead were still being counted. A file opened, images from the burned colony. She didn't blink. She had seen worse. But the This was personal, because once long ago she too had lived on a colony like that. She too had lost her family to aliens who thought humans were weak. She turned to her team. "We don't wait," she said. "We send a message." And, with that, Emberlight vanished into the stars again. The galaxy didn't know it yet, but the wrath of Earth had awakened, and the planet that dared strike first would never forget what came next. The silence after the attack was deafening. The Vorvex Empire scrambled to understand what had just happened. Their advanced sensors could not detect the Emberlight's whereabouts. It was as if the ship had disappeared into thin air. Commanders shouted orders, launching fleets and scanning every corner of their space. Yet the Emberlight moved like a ghost, fast, quiet, and deadly. Back on Earth, the crew of the Emberlight worked like a well-oiled machine. They knew their mission was dangerous. They were not there to fight a war with millions of soldiers. Their task was simple but brutal. Find the heart of the Vorvex war machine and destroy it. No warnings, no mercy. Captain Jonas Reed stood on the bridge, his eyes scanning the holographic map. "Target is a military base on the moon, Raylon 9, he said. "It's heavily guarded, but their defenses are slow. We hit, we leave." The crew nodded. They had trained for years for moments like this. Each of them had a personal reason to hate the Vorvex Empire. Each had lost something precious. The Emberlight approached the moon in stealth mode. As it slipped through the Vorvex sensor grid, the crew prepared their weapons and systems. There was no turning back. If they failed, countless more colonies would fall. Suddenly, alarms blared on the bridge. "Contact!" the navigator shouted. "Vorvex patrol ships, they spotted us." Captain Reed's voice was calm but firm. "Engage silent mode. Prepare for attack. We must not be seen." Minutes later, the patrol ships closed in, scanning the Emberlight with deadly lasers. The crew held their breath. Then with a sudden burst, the Emberlight dropped out of stealth. Plasma cannons fired in a precise pattern, disabling the patrol ships before they could call for backup. The attack was quick and efficient. Within moments, the patrols were destroyed or disabled. The Emberlight continued toward the military base. On the moon's surface, Vorvex soldiers scrambled to defend their base. The first explosion rocked the main control tower. Communications went dark. The Emberlight struck again and again, disabling power grids, weapon stations, and supply lines. Inside the base, panic spread. Soldiers ran without orders. Leaders shouted, but their voices were drowned by alarms. No one knew where the human ship was or when it would strike again. 17 minutes later, the base was silent. No life signs. No distress calls. Only the cold echo of destruction. Across the Empire, news of the attack spread like wildfire. The Vorvex High Council held an emergency meeting. Emperor Zorvax, a towering figure with glowing eyes, spoke for the first time since the attack. "This is not just a strike," he said. "It is a message. The humans are no longer the weak prey we believed. They have begun to fight back." His generals murmured in fear. They had underestimated humanity. Their arrogance had blinded them. Back on Earth, Commander Sarah Cade watched the news feed from the Vorvex Empire. She allowed herself a small smile. The Emberlight had done more than destroy a base. It had shaken the confidence of a mighty empire. But this was only the beginning. Humanity was waking up, and the galaxy would soon learn that when Earth's wrath was unleashed, nothing would ever be the same again. The galaxy was buzzing with whispers. News of the Emberlight's strike spread quickly through the star systems. Many alien races watched carefully, wondering if Earth had truly changed. Some feared the humans. Others thought it was just a warning, a one-time message. But deep inside the Vorvex Empire, fear was turning into anger. They could not let this go unanswered. Commander Sarah Cade sat in a secure room on Earth, staring at the star map. She saw the Vorvex fleets gathering, preparing to strike back. "They will come," she said quietly, "and when they do, we must be ready." On the Emberlight, Captain Jonas Reed and his crew prepared for what was next. The ship was small, but fast. Its technology was advanced, built from decades of secret research and human ingenuity. Yet the crew knew their biggest challenge was not their ship. It was the enemy waiting for them. Reports came in. The Vorvex had begun mobilizing. Hundreds of warships. Entire fleets were leaving their homeworld, moving toward Earth's borders. The war the galaxy had hoped to avoid was now coming. Inside the Emberlight, Lieutenant Meera Patel studied the enemy's movements. "They're massing near the Cora system," she said. "If we don't act fast, their fleet will be too large to stop." Captain Reed nodded. "We strike first. We hit their supply lines before their fleet can fully assemble." The crew worked day and night, running simulations and preparing their weapons. Outside, the stars seemed colder, darker, like the calm before a storm. Meanwhile, on a distant Vorvex command ship, General Vrack stared at the hologram of the Emberlight. "These humans fight with more than machines," he growled. "They fight with fire. We must crush them before they inspire others." He ordered an all-out hunt for the Emberlight. Every sensor, every ship, every soldier would search the galaxy. The humans would not hide forever, but the Emberlight was ready. Using new stealth technology, it slipped through enemy patrols. It struck quickly at Vorvex supply convoys, crippling their ability to feed their growing fleet. Each attack was precise, leaving the enemy confused and off balance. On Earth, civilians watched the news in mixed fear and hope. They remembered old stories of humans fighting wars that lasted for centuries. They knew the price of conflict. But many also felt pride. For the first time, Earth was not just a silent victim, it was a force to be reckoned with. Back on the Emberlight, Captain Reed addressed his crew. "We may be few," he said, "but we carry the wrath of millions behind us. Every strike is for those who cannot fight. We fight so that our future can be free." The galaxy held its breath, because the war was no longer far away. It had begun. The Vorvex Empire was furious. Their leaders refused to believe that a single human ship could damage their forces so deeply. In their war chambers, Emperor Zorvax slammed his fist on the table. "This cannot continue. Destroy the Emberlight, or I will personally lead the invasion to Earth." His generals bowed but whispered fears among themselves. The Emberlight was more than a ship. It was a symbol that humans would fight back with every last breath. Meanwhile, on Earth, preparations were underway. Cities built shelters deep underground. Scientists worked on new weapons, while families prayed for safety. The war was no longer a distant threat. It was coming home. Captain Jonas Reed stood on the bridge of the Emberlight, watching the stars. "Our next target is the Vorvex fleet's staging ground in the Targon Nebula," he said. "If we can break their supply chain, here we can slow their entire invasion." Lieutenant Meera Patel nodded. "But their defenses are stronger. They expect us now." The Emberlight slipped through asteroid fields and cosmic storms, using every trick to avoid detection. When they reached the nebula, the crew prepared for a battle unlike any they had faced. Suddenly, sensors picked up dozens of enemy ships. Vorvex warships swarmed out of the shadows surrounding the Emberlight. The captain's voice was steady. "All hands, battle stations, we fight for Earth." Lasers flashed, engines roared, and the stars lit up with war. The Emberlight darted through enemy fire, launching precision strikes at supply ships and command vessels. Each shot was calculated, each move sharp and deadly. But the Vorvex were relentless. Their numbers pressed harder, trying to crush the lone human ship. In the chaos, the Emberlight took a hit. Sparks flew, alarms screamed, and the crew fought to keep control. Captain Reed gritted his teeth. "We won't give up." With a final, daring move, the Emberlight fired its main cannon. The blast shattered the largest Vorvex command ship, breaking the enemy's formation. Silence returned to the nebula. The Vorvex fleet retreated, wounded and shaken. Back on Earth, news of the battle spread quickly. People cheered, hopeful for the first time in years. But Commander Cade knew the fight was far from over. The Vorvex Empire would not forget this defeat. They would come back stronger, and when they did, Earth would be waiting. The Vorvex Empire was bleeding but not broken. After the devastating loss in the Targon Nebula, their pride was shattered, and their rage was burning hotter than ever. Across their star systems, factories roared to life. New warships were built at terrifying speed. Billions of credits were poured into weapons, and the word was given, "Invade Earth, show no mercy." Emperor Zorvax's face appeared on every Vorvex military screen. "This time," he declared, "we do not hunt a ship. We crush a species." Back on Earth, tension filled the air. Everyone knew it was coming, a full-scale invasion. The government broadcast emergency messages, and evacuation drills became part of daily life. But among the fear, something else began to grow. Unity. Humans, once divided by nations and old grudges, were now one people, one world, and they were preparing to defend it. Inside a hidden mountain base, Commander Sarah Cade stood in front of a massive screen showing the stars. She had received the latest intel. A Vorvex superfleet was heading straight for Earth. "We have days," she told her team. "Not weeks, not months, days." Across the galaxy, the Emberlight limped through deep space. The ship was damaged from the last battle. Parts were failing. Fuel was low. But the crew refused to give up. Captain Jonas Reed sat in the command chair, bruised and exhausted, but his eyes burned with determination. "We're not done yet," he said. "There's one last card to play." The Emberlight's mission had changed. They would no longer just strike and run. They would deliver a message the Vorvex would never forget. Lieutenant Mira Patel pulled up schematics of a massive Vorvex communications relay hidden deep in the Exelon belt. "If we can hijack that relay," she said, "we can broadcast a message across the entire Vorvex Empire and the galaxy." "A message from Earth," Captain Reed replied. "Let them all hear what we are." The Emberlight jumped through hyperspace, navigating through pirate-infested sectors and unstable wormholes. It arrived near the relay station just as a new wave of Vorvex security ships arrived. There was no choice, no backup, no second chances. The Emberlight attacked with all it had. Lasers screamed across the stars. The ship twisted through the enemy, dodging fire, disabling one ship after another. Inside the relay, Mira uploaded the message. The screen blinked green. "Signal active." Captain Reed spoke the words himself, live across 1,000 systems. "To the Vorvex Empire, to every corner of this galaxy. You thought Earth would kneel. You thought humanity was broken, but you were wrong. We are not afraid of war. We were born in it. You have awakened something ancient, something you cannot stop. We are the storm that is coming." And then, silence. But across Vorvex territory, the message echoed on repeat. Impossible to shut down. Civilians heard it. Soldiers heard it. Even the Emperor heard it, his face dark with fury. Back on Earth, the message was met with silence, then cheers. People came out of shelters, stood together in the streets, and looked up at the stars. They knew the worst was yet to come, but they also knew something had changed. Earth was no longer just defending itself. Earth was rising, and the galaxy was beginning to understand. This war wasn't about territory anymore. It was about survival. And the humans had decided they would not go quietly. Far beyond Earth's orbit, space itself trembled. The Vorvex Empire's superfleet had arrived. Thousands of warships, black as shadow and armed with weapons that could tear moons in half, emerged from hyperspace. They stretched across the void like a tidal wave of fire and steel. The final invasion had begun. On Earth, sirens wailed across continents. Cities shut down. The skies turned red as defensive satellites powered up. Every spaceport launched fighters. And in hidden bunkers deep underground, children clutched their parents, whispering, "Will we survive?" But humanity didn't wait to be crushed. Commander Sarah Cade stood at the front of Earth's United Defense Fleet, her voice calm and clear. "No retreat," she said. "Not this time. Today, Earth stands." The Emberlight, still battered from its last mission, flew in from the dark edge of the system. It had no business joining the battle. Its armor was cracked, its crew exhausted, but Captain Jonas Reed refused to stay behind. "We helped start this fight," he told his crew. "We'll help finish it." The battle began with silence. Then, light. Explosions rippled through the stars as Earth's fleet clashed with the Vorvex. Human ships darted between giants, striking with deadly precision. AI-controlled drones swarmed enemy bombers. The sky above Earth became a battlefield filled with fire, smoke, and screams. On the Emberlight, Mira Patel locked onto a Vorvex command ship. "If we take this out," she said, "we break their formation." "Then let's break it," Reed replied. They pushed forward through enemy lines, shields down, weapons overheating. But their aim was true. The Emberlight crashed through the side of the command ship, blasting a hole in its hull. Mira uploaded a virus into the enemy systems, shutting down weapons across 5 nearby vessels. The Vorvex were stunned. That small, half-broken human ship had just taken out a key piece of their invasion. Back on Earth, the tide began to turn. Commander Cade's forces surged forward. For every human ship lost, 2 Vorvex fell. Pilots who had never seen real war became legends in seconds. Old nations, once rivals, now flew side by side. It wasn't about glory. It was about survival, about protecting the only home they had. But even as the enemy began to falter, a terrible signal echoed through the stars. The Vorvex had released their final weapon, the World Burner. It was a moon-sized war engine, a moving fortress with a cannon strong enough to crack Earth open like glass. And it was heading straight for the planet. Commander Cade's voice echoed across all channels. "All ships focus fire on the World Burner. We stop that thing or nothing else matters." But it was too large, too armored. Every missile bounced off its shields. Every laser barely scratched its hull. On the Emberlight, Mira looked at her captain. "We can't stop it from here." Reed's face was pale. He knew what they had to do. "Then we get inside it." Silence. The Emberlight's engines roared one last time as the crew made their decision. They would fly directly into the World Burner's core and detonate their ship from within. "I won't order anyone to stay," Reed said, but no one left. As the Emberlight closed in, Earth's forces kept the Vorvex busy. Commander Cade held the line, even as her ship took hit after hit. The whole planet seemed to hold its breath. The Emberlight entered the beast. Deep inside, Mira armed the core overload. Sparks flew, heat built. The countdown began. Captain Reed looked at a small photo taped to his console, his family, long gone. He smiled. Then, light. A flash brighter than the sun. The World Burner cracked apart, its pieces raining across the void. The shockwave tore through the Vorvex fleet, scattering them in chaos. Earth had survived, but the Emberlight was gone. Back, on Earth, the skies cleared. The enemy was retreating. And in every heart across the planet, one name was whispered: Emberlight, the ship that gave everything, the crew that saved a world. And as the stars began to shine again over Earth, people looked up and knew the war was not over, but neither was humanity. And now the galaxy feared their wrath. The war was over, but the silence that followed was heavier than any battle. Across the smoking remains of the battlefield, the Vorvex fleet drifted in chaos. What was once an unstoppable armada was now a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered pride. Their World Burner, once their greatest weapon, was gone, reduced to glowing fragments that still orbited Earth like falling stars. The humans had not just survived, they had won. But victory came at a price. In command centers around Earth, officers stood in quiet respect. Commander Sarah Cade walked through the main operations hall, her eyes red but proud. Her voice was soft when she said, "The Emberlight did what no one else could. They turned a doomed battle into hope." Every screen across Earth showed the names of the Emberlight's crew: Captain Jonas Reed, Lieutenant Mira Patel, Engineer Tom Vex, Pilot Lisa Hart. One by one, they were honored as heroes. Streets were named after them. Children learned their names in school. Statues rose in every major city, not just to honor the dead, but to remind the living of what humanity truly was. Not perfect, not without fear, but when pushed to the edge, they pushed back harder. The Vorvex Empire never recovered. Their colonies revolted. Their citizens, after hearing the Emberlight's message, began to question everything. The Emperor vanished. Some say he fled to a dark moon. Others believe he was overthrown by his own people. But it didn't matter anymore, because for the first time in known galactic history, humans were feared. Alien races who once ignored Earth now sent envoys and peace treaties. Former enemies bowed their heads. The galaxy had seen what happened when you woke the wrath of mankind. And deep beneath Earth's surface, in a quiet hangar built to honor lost heroes, a new project began. A ship, sleek, powerful, built not just for defense but for exploration. On the side, 4 words were painted in bold silver letters: "In memory of Emberlight." Commander Cade stood beside it, her hand resting on the cold metal. She knew the next chapter of humanity was starting, not in fear but in strength, not in hiding but in discovery, because Earth was no longer just a planet on the edge of the galaxy. It was a name whispered with respect, a symbol of resilience, and a warning. To any empire that thought humans were weak, to any tyrant who saw kindness as softness. The galaxy would never forget what happened when they pushed Earth too far. An alien empire had awoken human wrath, and their planet never recovered.